And another thing that I want to kind of point out here is when you're doing color correction, it's a really good idea to look at the scopes. I'm going to do a search for scopes under menu items. So under window, Lumetri scopes. Okay, if you look at these scopes here, I'm going to select this window here, and then I'm going to go ahead and select so this is a vector scope, and this is telling us things about color, the color information. So like if it gets too far out, like as I expand these things, let's say if I take the saturation and I blow it up, you can see that what it does on the vector scope here, okay? So that is a way of kind of visualizing. All color correction people work with these scopes. Another scope to look at is the waveform monitor, and this is the one that I typically work with. I prefer the waveform that is black and white. So it's the Luma. I'm going to turn off the vector scope so that we can just look at the Luma. So the thing to understand is that you have 0 to 100, okay? And the skin tone of people typically live around 40 to 60. And that's not, a law. That really depends on what you're doing, because there's nothing wrong with having a very dark shot if it's called for in your script. But as far as color correction is concerned, you don't want anything to be too black and you don't want anything to be too white. So 100%, you can see this flat line here. That means when this was shot, this right here represents this thing right here. And this thing is overexposed, and so this is clipped. Okay, and so if you have a flat line like that, it tells me that there's no color information in here. There's nothing that we can really do to repair that. So, just be aware of what's going on, that you don't want anything to go over 100, because if you go over 100, then you could be going beyond broadcast safe, and you'll get something that's pretty ugly like that right there. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and just change this out so I can see my tools. So as I change the contrast, look what happens to my scope. I'm going to actually go down to curves, and if I want to go into the master one here, and I'm going to click at the down here is where black lives, and up here is where white lives. So I just make these dots, and if I bring this down, you can see like as the black goes down, this right here is like you're clipping in the top, which I explained before. When you go too far down here, this is called crushing the blacks. If you have a black line like this, you can see how there's no color information in the black area. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if I want to increase the black level, and I typically like the blacks to look kind of, prominent, so I'm going to bring down the black level a little bit, and as I do that, I'm watching what's going on this scope. Okay, and so I'm in the curves tool, and so that looks pretty good. I'm not crushing anything. There's still data here. If I go too far, now I'm starting to crush it. Okay, so now I want to look at these scopes. So it's also, if you're not working on a high quality monitor, it is important that you are looking at these scopes. So now on the high end of things, if I want to make things a little bit brighter, let's say I shot something and there's not a lot of color information, you can go into the I would make a dot here, and this middle part here allows me to take the middle areas and increase or decrease the things that are in the center. Okay, and so that gives you an idea how to use the waveform monitor.